Dear listener, before the story begins, I ask you to subscribe to my channel. This is the best motivation at the start. And we are starting. I recently left a voicemail from my long-separated spouse, inquiring about the number of times she had been unfaithful to me over the course of our nearly 40-year relationship. As I await her response, I anticipate she will claim that I'm being irrational and deny any infidelity. While browsing through stories of cheating wives on Reddit, I came across a captivating tale that resonated with an experience from our own lives. The story revolved around a husband discovering his wife had been diagnosed with chlamydia, a sexually transmitted infection. Armed with this evidence alone, the man proceeded to divorce his wife. After conducting thorough research following the story, my worst suspicions were confirmed. Chlamydia can only be transmitted through oral, anal, or vaginal intercourse, or it may have been dormant for a couple of years. My wife revealed her diagnosis 3 months into our marriage, but the dormant aspect was not a plausible explanation since we had cohabited for 4 years prior to tying the knot. Foolishly, I believed her assertion that she contracted it from using a hotel jacuzzi during a week-long training seminar for her travel agency, 2 months post-wedding. Regardless of the outcome, divorce is not on the table. I simply desire the truth, which is sufficient for me. Despite our 7-year separation, I maintain a cordial relationship due to her health issues, assisting with shopping, transportation, and ensuring she attends her medical appointments. These circumstances will remain unchanged. I merely seek honesty regarding the existence of additional instances. As I sit here, my thoughts race, seeking answers and clarity, a common occurrence among betrayed partners. However, dwelling on these thoughts is unproductive and futile in my situation. Had our separation not spanned 7 years, the revelation would have likely culminated in divorce. Nevertheless, we are content with our current lives, and I am satisfied being myself. Our journey together began in 1985, with our marriage following in 1989. We acquired 2 homes and embarked on extensive travels, but never had children. Our paths diverged as she indulged excessively in alcohol, and I felt disrespected by her unwillingness to comprehend my perspectives. To avoid harming her or myself due to frustrations and a complete lack of affection, I chose to move out. Now in our 60s, neither of us harbors intentions of remarrying. With her 38-plus years of participation in holiday events, she has become an integral part of my family, forging bonds that extend beyond our marital union. As she now finds herself alone, I have become her sole genuine friend, often prioritizing her health more than she does herself. This encapsulates the current state of our relationship. I will await her call for the next 5 hours or more, until she rises from bed between 6 and 7 p.m. This significant difference in our sleep schedules played a substantial role in our separation. I would be waking up just as she was retiring for the night. A peculiar way of life we shared. My spouse and I are in our mid-20s. We connected when I wasn't yet baptized, but our affection propelled me through 4 years of relentless meetings and mistreatment from elders while striving for baptism. I was baptized, we relocated, and we're now attempting to fade. Our entire social circle and family are witnesses, with both of our dads serving as elders. Our relationship began due to our profound shared passions and sense of humor. We sincerely cherished our moments together and desired to pursue a romantic relationship. I was on the path to baptism, but her father heard a single rumor about our communication and promptly contacted my elders. I attended a different hall than my parents. They immediately withdrew their support without even meeting with me first. Following this, we ceased communication. I shared a living space with 2 companions. My elders instructed both of them to monitor me and report back immediately if we resumed contact. One roommate, who later began fading shortly after I did, disclosed all of this to me. From what my wife has shared, her experience was far more traumatic. Her father subjected her to systematic emotional abuse, tracking her every move. On several occasions, he physically prevented her from leaving the house. In another instance, he manipulated her into becoming a pioneer and reducing her work hours, threatening, "I will step down as an elder, and it will be your fault." He repeatedly utilized this threat against her. This, combined with his constant disparagement of her appearance, culminated in her hospitalization following a suicide attempt. Upon learning of this, we immediately reconnected. We deeply loved each other and needed to rely on one another for support, which thankfully we did. My roommates began expressing that she was not a spiritual sister and that I should leave her, initially making this statement right after her suicide attempt. We engaged in frequent arguments about this. 3 months later, I found myself in a mental health facility following a suicidal attempt. None of my friends or elders visited me. Only she and my father did. My father mentioned that he pleaded with the elders to see me, but they all declined. Eventually, I moved back in with my parents because my friendships had disintegrated. All of these events transpired within a single year. Once living with my parents again, I spent 3 years battling with my former and current elders, trying to convince them that I hadn't communicated with her. I deceived them the entire time because she required my support. The elders consistently lied, claiming on 4 separate occasions that they possessed sexually explicit texts extracted from her phone. Each time I requested to see them, but they never provided evidence. They only ceased making these claims when I involved the CO, who expedited my baptism. In retrospect, I should have taken action the first time they failed to show me, but I was young and still had faith. What did I know about confronting elders or demanding the truth? Within 7 months of my baptism, we got married. We've now been married for 3 years and have both been receiving therapy to process our experiences. Therapy helped us recognize the severity of the abuse we endured during our upbringing, including childhood sexual abuse, CSA, and emotional and physical mistreatment. After everything we went through, my wife and I started feeling disillusioned and lost our faith. We transitioned to 3 different congregations, but rumors about our past continued to follow us. My wife witnessed overt hypocrisy at her workplace, all witnesses, and I had 3 separate brothers fail to pay me for work I completed, even after the elders intervened. Nothing changed. I didn't have a written agreement because I trusted them as my brothers. I was incredibly foolish to believe this couldn't happen, especially after everything we had experienced. This led to a complete loss of faith on my part. I began researching news articles about witnesses, exploring religious texts from other denominations, and delving into the history of the witnesses. Following this, I fully disassociated myself, and my wife soon came to share my perspective. I started forming new friendships outside the witness faith, and what I discovered was astonishing. Jesus Christ, why are they kinder than witnesses? None of my new acquaintances judged me for aspiring to be a musician. My parents prevented me from pursuing music in college. They provided financial assistance when our medical expenses became overwhelming, lent me vehicles when ours broke down, and never once demanded payment for anything. I recognize that this account may seem somewhat disjointed, but that's how our lives have been for years. We are both striving to fade, but her father's constant surveillance and my family's use of my siblings and cousins as weapons to keep me in the faith have made it emotionally taxing. We go through the motions, but find everything increasingly painful. We don't engage in service, only participate via Zoom, and are struggling to justify our actions to our family members. Once I complete my online college courses, my wife and I plan to relocate to another state. I hope that the distance will make things easier for us. Hello everyone, my name is Rich. I recently discovered this community and realized that there were numerous others who shared my feelings, and I feel incredibly liberated and strangely like I've found a home for the first time in my life. I'm 41 years old and was raised in the religion. Mom was a pioneer. Dad an MS. My parents divorced when I was an infant, and my mom disassociated herself. After a bitter court custody battle, a judge granted me to my mother and ruled that my 2 other siblings were mature enough to choose where they wanted to live. They opted for my father. So, from the age of 5 onward, I essentially grew up as an only child. However, despite my mother's disassociation, she retained all the teachings and ideologies without us ever attending meetings or conventions. So, she essentially saved money by not having to throw me birthday parties or buy Christmas presents throughout my entire childhood. LOL. Fast forward to when I was 17 and in high school, somehow my siblings and father's side of the family located me, and we reconnected, triggering the love bombing. Having been alone from 5 to 17, I was thrilled to finally be reunited with the family I had longed for, and I was swiftly offered a Bible study. They could have been involved in anything, and I would have gone along with it just to have them back in my life. I was baptized shortly after turning 18, just 9 months after reconnecting. My mother, still disassociated, refused to return to the truth, which strained my relationship with the only parent I had ever known. The first JW trauma occurred when I invited my mother to my high school graduation party and was subsequently publicly reproved because she was bad association and her presence could have potentially stumbled others. I was deeply hurt, angry, and perplexed. Nevertheless, I persisted. I aspired to serve at Bethel and declined scholarships and opportunities, thinking, what could the world offer me? Nonetheless, I continued striving to do everything I was instructed and be perfect. After repeatedly being overlooked for privileges, I grew tired of witnessing other young brothers who were elders' children being utilized and praised, despite knowing firsthand the double lives they were leading. I eventually faded out in my early 20s, never feeling like I belonged. It always seemed insincere. I felt judged as if the burden of my family's history followed me. Although I had been inactive since 2006, I never felt at peace. I lived with guilt and shame, being guilt-tripped by family and my own conscience. Dating was a nightmare. No woman could understand unless she was an ex-JW herself, and even then, we would both feel guilty together. Holidays were the most depressing. I would shave my beard around Memorial Time to make my appearance. I simply resigned myself to this being my life until Armageddon arrived, and I was destroyed, never seeing my father who passed away when I was a child again. My lowest point occurred 5 years ago when my mother had a change of heart, returned to the faith full-time, and was reinstated as a full-time pioneer. I have lost my only parent. She is a different person now. The turning point for me came last October, after one of my older brothers died from his battle with cancer, and none of my family showed up except for me because he was disfellowshipped. The anger triggered something within me. I finally allowed myself to look up apostate information on YouTube. For the past month, I have been consuming everything. I can't describe how therapeutic it feels to be mentally and emotionally free at last, no longer afraid. I got engaged last year to a wonderful woman, and my mother informed me that she will not be attending my wedding this November. I was sad but no longer am. I'm grateful to be here, thankful for this community and everyone's stories. My other brother is now an elder and is still trying to bring me back. I no longer feel that need or pull. For anyone still in, know that it gets better. Leave on your own time and terms. I love you all, and thank you for reading my story.